You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Before this podcast kicks off, let's talk about goals. The Greatest Goal is a native tree crowdfunding campaign, leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
Football Fever with News Talk ZB's voice of football, Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
Welcome into Football Fever in association with treesthatcount.co.nz. Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with you. The tournament is underway and underway in glorious, emotional fashion at Eden Park last night.
And New Zealand, for the first time in their history, have won a World Cup finals match.
Incredible stuff. The key moment just after half-time.
Hand is off after it. Wilkinson's in the middle. Wilkinson!
Audio there from Sky Sport. Hannah Wilkinson's goal has given New Zealand a 1-0 win over the 12th ranked side in the world. Here's coach Jitka Klimkova afterwards.
We waited for this moment for such a long time, and having this opportunity at home, beating Norway, strong opposition, unforgettable moment.
A very proud moment too for Captain Ali Riley.
To see the way we performed and fought, the resilience of this team, how gritty, the effort, the sprinting, everything, like that is the kind of performance that we wanted to show. That's who we are.
And it puts the Ferns in a great position to advance out of their World Cup group for the first time ever. Defender CJ Bott says it's vital that they now kick on.
Oh, it's so important. You definitely can't waste these moments. And yeah, we've got our goals set in stone and we know what we want to do, and fingers crossed we can achieve those.
Bonnie Jansen, you were there. How was it? How was it last night?
Piney, listening back to all that commentary and audio, I just have goosebumps all over again. It was, probably one of the coolest sporting occasions of my life. It was amazing.
The crowd just on television looked amazing. You kind of get a gauge of how loud it is and how emotionally invested people were. Social media last night was just full of people's photos and videos. But being there, it was as big a crowd, wasn't it, as to what turned up for the Women's Rugby World Cup final back end of last year?
Yeah, I remember seeing some gaps in the crowd during those Rugby World Cup matches. But last night you couldn't see many. Maybe it was because it was dark or whatever, but it was... it was a huge crowd and everyone was on the edge of their seats, but right from the get-go, the Ferns showed up from that first whistle.
Yeah, and I think that was what was most impressive for me, was that this wasn't a smash and grab. This wasn't you can look at a 1-0 and say, oh, maybe Norway had 90% of possession, we just nicked one on the break and got away with it. It wasn't that way at all. From the first whistle, in fact, right through the whole game, New Zealand were the match of Norway, weren't they?
Yeah, we were, and that was the only downside at half-time, was that we hadn't found the back of the net yet, because we were all over them. It was like Norway seemed unfit, like they didn't show up, or they, the crowd were too much for them. I don't know what happened, but the Ferns played out of their skins, like from start to finish.
And let's not forget, they missed a penalty late on as well. Rhea Percival striking the post with a penalty that would have made it 2-0. Doesn't matter. Still get the 1-0 win.
Not talking about that.
I actually thought it was a pretty good pen, apart from the fact it didn't go in.
It was brave.
Yeah,
it was brave, and good on her. I mean, had we not come out with that win, it would be the most talked about thing, but now who cares?
Indeed, yeah, because the most talked about thing is the goal, and I've watched it I think at least a dozen times this morning just to revel in it, because it's from back to front in 5 or 6 passes, and there's so much to like about it. The best part for me is Jackie Hand's delivery into the box. I mean, you and I score that goal with that delivery.
Yeah, I thought Jackie Hand, her distribution last night was impeccable. The weight of her pass every time. She was feeding balls through to Hannah in India multiple times, but that one was laid on a platter for Hannah, and I'm just so glad she finished that one.
Yeah, Hannah Wilkinson's had a bit of a tough time of things in recent times for New Zealand. She's her job is to score goals, and she hasn't necessarily scored a lot recently. So for her to tuck that one away, and you could just see the elation and what it meant as she wheeled away and was just swamped by all the players on the field and all of the substitutes as well. It was just an awesome moment for Hannah Wilkinson, probably the most important goal in New Zealand football history, really, to get a result against someone like Norway at a Football World Cup. Other players for you who stood out? I've got a couple, but I'd be interested to know who you were really impressed with last night.
I thought CJ Bott, right from the get-go, she was winning balls, she was putting in hard tackles, and she was composed on the ball, and that really set the tone for the Ferns. I think her teammates really fed off that energy. I thought Malia Steinmetz in the middle, her composure on the ball was amazing, and she was brave, and I honestly thought everyone played well. I have to admit something though, Piney. I was talking to a few colleagues, and I didn't think at half-time, I thought Hannah Wilkinson was our only player, maybe not up to scratch. And, I mean, she turned that around in the second half, but I think everyone just had a great game.
Yeah, I think what happens on a stage like this, when you have such a significant result, you're right. You look across the 11 who started, plus the 3 that came on, and it's hard to find anybody who didn't contribute. I had Malia Steinmetz written down here and CJ Bott. For me, they were the two. But late in the game, I was watching Betsy Hassett. She must have covered every blade of grass on Eden Park last night. And in the 99th minute of that game, she was still running. She's just relentless, Betsy Hassett.
Yeah, I thought she was intercepting a lot of ball and was, yes, I don't know. I think she was a little silent contributor for us, and she really got the job done in the midfield. The midfield were great. Rhea was great. Just everyone. Ali Riley impressed me as well. And then Stott at the back and Bowen as well. Her delivery was great. Oh, Piney, it was amazing.
It was. India Page Riley with almost a wonder goal. Vic Essen in goal for New Zealand. There was the one that struck the crossbar, which on a second look, I don't think many people picked it up first time. She actually got fingertips to that and pushed it up onto the crossbar. So that is a terrific save. So, yeah, from back to front, hard to find a New Zealand player who can't emerge with great credit. What it also does, Bonnie, is absolutely set this tournament up because, as we've said often, World Cups work best when the host nation does well. And I don't know about you, but everybody around this office this morning where I am, every bit of social media I look at, every media outlet I look at online or anywhere, all anybody's talking about is the football Ferns.
Yeah, I've only been in the office about 20 minutes this morning, but everyone started swarming to my desk wanting to talk about it finally, and I've been waiting for that energy and this whole build-up, and now that's yeah, I mean, who would have thought our football Ferns, a women's national team, are getting this coverage, and they rightly deserve it. They were incredible last night.
Let's talk about the context of the tournament now. Obviously, New Zealand have 2 more pool games. They play the Philippines in Wellington on Tuesday and then Switzerland in Dunedin next Sunday. As I understand it, both of those games are pretty much sold out now. So we're looking at massive crowds in both Wellington and Dunedin. But what does beating Norway do in terms of the stated goal of this team of getting out of the group and playing knockout football?
Well, it sets the tone. Now the Ferns know what they're capable of, and the most important thing is not getting too complacent. But I don't think they will, because the Ferns have had a rough run to this point, so they'll come into the next 2 matches even more hungry. But we've been talking about it. They need points. They need results in these next 2 games, because there could be a 3-way tie at the top, or 3 teams on 2 wins. So they're just as important as this win against Norway. Yeah,
and I think they have to approach the Philippines in exactly the same way they were pre-tournament, and that is our game to win. This Norway game is a nice bonus, a lovely bonus to get 3 points. But yeah, beat the Philippines on Tuesday, 6 points from 2 games, and you really do then start to think about knockout football in real clarity.
Anything can happen in knockout football. I was on my way home last night thinking, hold on, we could get to the semi-finals.
Jeepers, Bonnie. I think you might have got a bit carried away. I think you might have got a bit carried away in the emotion of it all, but you're forgiven. Everybody is forgiven after what we saw last night. A wonderful piece of footballing history at Eden Park.
Football Fever Podcast with trees that count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
While this podcast is taking a halftime break, let's talk about the greatest goal. A crowdfunding campaign leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-host of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 by asking fans to donate a native tree. Each native tree costs just $10, and whether you donate one or many, you'll be contributing to amazing restoration projects across Aotearoa. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal. Looks like they're ready to start the second half.
Football Fever with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with trees that count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
All right, after all the excitement of what happened at Eden Park last night, last night's other game featured the other co-host, Australia, beating Ireland 1-0 at Stadium Australia. Steph Catley scoring the winner in the 52nd minute from the penalty spot. The big news pre-game was Sam Kerr ruled out with a calf injury. You probably didn't see this game. You would have been far too tied up with post-match until the wee small hours. But I guess for Australia, it's the same as New Zealand. You start off with a win, right?
Yeah, I did actually see a little bit of it, and I think Australia were lucky. They dominated possession, but Ireland were good and showed up to the occasion, so good on them. But 2 wins for the host countries, that's all you want.
Absolutely you do. So we move on now to today's games. There are 3 of them. Group B, Nigeria up against Canada. This game's in Melbourne, 2:30 this afternoon, New Zealand time. Canada are the Olympic champions from 2021 in Tokyo. They'll rightly have expectations of certainly getting out of the group and going deep into the tournament. Nigeria, the only African team to feature in all 9 Women's World Cups, and they made the round of 16 4 years ago. But you'd think that Canada would be too good this afternoon.
I don't know about that, Piney. I actually really like Nigeria, and I think they're going to give Canada a good run.
All right, jeepers, you really are coming off the long run today.
Optimistic.
Look, upsets are what make World Cups go round. We had one last night. Look, Nigeria. Look, I'd be all in on them if they were to be able to beat Canada. I just watched Bev Priestman, their coach, and we know she was the former New Zealand head of football here for a wee while, back end of the 2000s into the 2010s, and she's got this team, playing very, very well. But look, I'd like to think Nigeria are a chance, but they're 40th in the world. Canada are 7th.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. It is my pool. It is my pool of death. So I think anything could happen. As Ireland showed up again last night. Yeah, and we'll wait and see.
All right, so that's 2:30 this afternoon. Nigeria against Canada in Melbourne. Then we move on to Group A, Philippines, Switzerland. This is the other game in New Zealand's group, and I guess we'll all be interested to see what happens in Dunedin from 5 this afternoon. Latest TAB odds I have: Philippines $10, Switzerland $1.10. So it should be the Swiss, shouldn't it?
Well, I mean, going off last night. Could it be the Philippines? Who knows? A little bit of insight for you, though. We were in the media centre last night at the game, and the Swiss journalists over here weren't too confident with their Swiss team this winter. So who knows? Anything could happen.
Yeah, Philippines making their first appearance at a men's or women's World Cup, so it's an historic occasion for them as they play their first game at a senior World Cup. Their coach is the Australian Alan Sturridge, and of course after this game the Philippines come to Wellington to take on New Zealand. Switzerland will play Norway. If Switzerland weren't to get a result this afternoon, that Switzerland-Norway game becomes huge, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I'm trying to work that out now. It does. It really will mean anything could happen in Group A.
It's. I think most people just thought Norway would get out of the group. I just think people thought that. But just going back and not wanting to labour the point too much, they weren't impressive last night, were they? New Zealand didn't let them play for large periods, but Norway didn't look like the team that we spoke about on this podcast 24 hours ago, talking about their highly vaunted front three. They hardly showed up.
No, I'll give it to the New Zealand coaching staff as well. I think that 9-week training camp that the football ferns had really paid off. We were fitter than Norway and we really gelled. You could see that it was a team that had finally connected, and Norway just were not up with the play.
Philippines, Switzerland this afternoon, 5 o'clock in Dunedin. Then tonight in Wellington, first game in the capital for the tournament, Spain against Costa Rica. Surely you're not backing Costa Rica here. They're paying $67 at the TAB, Bonnie. Spain, you can't even get a bet on them. Surely Spain win this. You're not picking an upset in this one, surely.
No, Spain should walk away with this one for sure. They've had a few players that haven't come down under just with protesting with their federation, but they do of course have Alexia Putellas, the best player in the world right now, so they should walk away with that win pretty easy. You'll be there, Piney?
Yeah, looking forward to it actually, seeing the first game in Wellington. And yeah, Putellas, she's been recovering from an ACL, but as you say, she's won the last 2 Ballon d'Or awards, indisputably one of the best attacking midfielders in the world. Spain qualified for the World Cup, winning all 8 of their games, scoring 53 goals and not conceding any. It's quite the record, isn't it, to get to a World Cup with 8 straight wins and not conceding any goals. Costa Rica, they didn't record a win in 2015 when they went to the World Cup, but left Canada with their heads held high, a defeat and a couple of draws. And I listened to their coach yesterday at her press conference, and she said, look, success for us against Spain would be being competitive, maybe scoring a goal, but they'll be looking at the other games in that pool as to where they might find themselves a win. All right, well, how long do you think this rosy glow of Football Fern's exuberance will last?
Oh, we'll bring it on to the next one. We'll roll into Tuesday. They'll be playing in the football capital of New Zealand. You'll be pleased to hear, down in Wellington, and hopefully we just continue with it. It's so exciting.
It really is exciting. A fresh episode of Football Fever will drop tomorrow morning just before lunch as we review the games that we've talked about as preview today, and then look ahead to the games to come on Saturday, including our first look at the United States as they take on Vietnam at Eden Park tomorrow afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day, Bonnie. I hope the conversation around the Football Ferns continues for a wee while yet.
Me too.
Football Fever Podcast with trees that count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
In this post-match review, let's score the greatest goal by donating a native tree to leave a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.